Despite discontinuing the Camaro, we can expect the Chevy brand to stick around. Denny Hamlin unveils his new look, and NASCAR updates the Christopher Bell rule. How's it going, y'all? My name is Eric. Welcome to Out of the Groove. Lots to catch up on today. I hope you're buckled in because we've got a lot of ground to cover and we'll be making several pit stops along the way. And that's a perfect unintentional segue because speaking of pit stops, NASCAR just clarified what I'm calling the Christopher Bell rule. Real quick, to get everyone up to speed, last weekend, Christopher Bell leaves his pit box. The pit crew immediately notices that the left front wheel is loose. The crew chief and spotter communicate that with the driver, and Bell, heads up, is able to cut across traffic and pull into his teammate Chase Briscoe's pit box, where the 19 team tightened the lug nut for him and sent him on his merry way. The penalty for pitting outside of your box was to restart at the tail end of the field. But if that wheel had come off on the racetrack, Bell was looking at a 2-lap penalty, potentially, which could have ruined his day. Quick thinking by the 20 team, but many wondered if NASCAR would amend the rulebook this week. And the short answer is, they kinda did. This is the memo that NASCAR just sent out to the race teams and the media. It reads, quote, "If a vehicle receives service in another team's pit stall to correct a safety issue, the vehicle will receive a flag status penalty, restart tail end, pass through for the vehicle pitting outside of the assigned pit box. Some examples of a safety issue: tighten loose wheel nuts, remove a fuel can, remove a wedge wrench, remove the jack from under the vehicle. If a vehicle receives service in another team's pit stall for competition adjustments, the vehicle may receive a lap penalty." So, say this weekend at Homestead, Kyle Larson leaves his pit box. The team immediately realizes they left a wheel loose. He pulls into Alex Bowman's pit stall. They tighten it, send him off. The penalty would be the exact same that Christopher Bell faced. Larson would have to restart at the tail end of the field. The only change NASCAR made in this bulletin is that if Larson were to pull into Bowman's box and they made a wedge adjustment or added fuel to the car, then they might hold Kyle Larson a lap or more. That's the clarification NASCAR just sent out. And I'm glad they made that distinction clearly. I'm good with this change. I know NASCAR's in a tough spot. They have to balance fairness with safety. Is it fair that teams like Joe Gibbs, Hendrick, Trackhouse have more teammates than, say, Hayek Motorsports or Rick Ware? No, I guess not, but it's also unsafe to let these cars roll out onto the track, even under caution, if a wheel could fall off, get hit, get launched outside of the playing field. Kevin Harvick joked on his podcast this week about having like a neutral pit crew at the very end of pit road that's just there to tighten wheel nuts for whoever needs it. They kind of laughed about the idea on the show, but honestly, if we're looking to balance fairness and safety, I mean, that would be the way to go. Just have a couple tire changers there sitting at the exit of pit road, and if you think your wheel's loose, you can pull over and they'll get to you when they get to you. It'll be like the line of cars waiting to get their tire pressures checked at Discount Tire. Just line up and one at a time, we'll tighten your wheel nut for you. Like, I don't know, it's kind of a goofy idea, but if we're trying to balance safety and fairness, I mean, that would be the way to do it. I'm fine with this clarification, the bulletin NASCAR just put out. Moving on, many of you have probably seen or heard of the brush fires that are currently blazing just outside of Homestead Miami Speedway, literally within a couple miles of the racetrack. As of 11:30 this morning, the city of Homestead stated that the fire is 20% contained, and they say the NASCAR events are still set to continue as scheduled. Hopefully everybody stays safe out there. I saw a video today of a helicopter like scooping water out of the little pond outside of turn 3 to go dump it on the fires. Crazy stuff. I just want to mention it here on the show because if you're headed to the track this weekend, make sure you get to the facility early. Be prepared maybe for extra traffic, possible road closures. I hope everyone in Homestead, Florida is able to stay safe and have a good time this weekend. wanted to provide an update there. Keep an eye on social media, especially listen to anything the city of Homestead puts out if you're in the area this weekend. Moving on, Joe Gibbs Racing officially unveiled Progressive Insurance as Denny Hamlin's new primary sponsor. It's an 18-race deal. Take a look at that bright blue, simple paint scheme, but effective, in my opinion. Uses the expanded door space well, and I'm really looking forward to seeing how that blue shines, especially under the lights later this year. I read through the press releases, and as great of a deal as this is, I saw no mention of multi-year. So, I don't want to take away from how big this deal is. Progressive Insurance is a blue chip sponsor. To get them on board for roughly half the schedule, that's a huge win for the here and now of 2025. But looking ahead, this does not answer any questions for 2026 and beyond. I saw this report from Adam Stern Sports Business Journal. Yeah, one of the interesting things about NASCAR is that the teams, the tracks, and the sanctioning body have to compete against one another for valuable sponsorship dollars. Stern reports that NASCAR had met with Progressive about a possible sponsorship deal likely to replace Geico as one of the Cup Series' premier partners. Progressive opted to go with JGR instead, or maybe there's still a NASCAR deal that's on the table. That's certainly possible. I'd heard rumors maybe that they were in talks to replace Xfinity as maybe the title sponsor of the secondary stock car series. Who knows? Score this one, though, for JGR. As Denny Hamlin's war with NASCAR rages on, another small victory in this case for DH, landing Progressive Insurance. Big deal for 2025. I'll be real interested to see if this relationship extends on into 2026. Then we can talk Denny's future. How about another paint scheme? Not a new paint scheme, though. An old one, or a livery, as some might say. The Wood Brothers just unveiled their 75th anniversary Darlington throwback scheme. It's a tribute, as John Wood says, to Jim Clark's 1965 Indianapolis 500 victory. That's right, an open wheel car. Honestly, the yellow stripe, it's sort of like an optical illusion because it's narrow. It makes me think of, an open wheel car, the body. It kind of works. It's tricking my brain into thinking this is somehow, some way, an Indy car. I'll link it down below, but Zach Albert, writing for NASCAR.com, did a great piece highlighting the history of that 1965 race, the Wood Brothers' involvement. Team Lotus actually won the Indy 500, but the Wood Brothers served as their pit crew. Glenn Wood's team actually created an all-new fueling mechanism that drastically reduced the time they had to spend on pit road, helped them win that race. Dominate that race, as a matter of fact. I thought this quote was funny. Apparently, the Wood Brothers actually reached out to the Lotus founding family to get their blessing to run this scheme. This is what John Wood said, quote, "I'm trying my damnedest to make them understand what a throwback is, but they use words like livery and revival. So I'm trying to translate from my hillbilly talk to words he'll understand. And I think towards the very end, he sort of started to get it." They're offering a die cast of this car, great colors, really, really cool. Outside of the box, the Wood Brothers, again, 75 years of NASCAR history. This isn't what we would have expected. Not at all. It's not a NASCAR throwback, but it's still a recognizable design, a recognizable color scheme, very well executed. Anytime you change the door number font to match the throwback you are throwing back to, I love it. Gets a thumbs up in my book. It's different, but that's not always a bad thing. And it highlights a story that, frankly, I was not familiar with, and I'm sure many other fans weren't familiar with either. It speaks to the Wood Brothers' versatility and, again, their longevity, not just as a NASCAR team, but as a broader motorsports competitor for all these years. So this one's cool. Again, gets a thumbs up in my book. One more topic I'd like to discuss. The Camaro was recently discontinued. I believe it was discontinued last year, but obviously Chevrolet continues to run the Camaro style body in NASCAR, and reports out of Daytona where we can expect the Camaro style to remain at least for a couple more years. V8 Sleuth, I will also link this article down in the description below, quoted Eric Warren, a GM Motorsports executive this week, and he said that their future NASCAR and supercars cars will continue to be Chevrolets. Warren said, quote, "Our research would indicate that we have fans that are passionate about buying those cars and driving them, but we also have a large number of fans that have allegiance to the bow tie, the Chevrolet, and have a long history of that." So, in other words, don't expect Cadillac or any other GM brand to enter NASCAR in the coming years. They're sticking with Chevrolet, at least for the foreseeable future. Now, will it be the Camaro for much longer? That remains to be seen. Eric Warren in this piece does tease exciting future projects that GM is working on. So we'll have to keep a lookout. But for now, no changes expected. The bow tie will remain in NASCAR for the foreseeable future. Before I go, NASCAR driver Brennan Poole and I posted an episode of our Power Hour podcast this morning, which included an interview with Truck Series Rookie of the Year Layne Riggs, two-time truck race winner last year. You can click the link down below to listen to or watch our full conversation, but I wanted to share part of the interview here. Layne Riggs did a lot of late model racing with his father, former Cup Series driver Scott Riggs. They won races and they really burst onto the national scene in 2022 when Layne won the NASCAR Weekly Series Championship. Layne Riggs talks about that time and how that success led to his first Truck and Xfinity Series opportunities. Thought this was interesting, wanted to share. A big step I know on your journey to getting to NASCAR, well, getting to the Truck Series, I should say, was winning the NASCAR Weekly Series Championship a few years back. Like, how important was that accomplishment in your early racing journey?
Yeah, I think that was the final hitter that everybody's like, okay, this kid's for real. And that was done with the volunteer late model team, which was crazy. I
Wow.
was going to college at UNC Charlotte. Actually, just graduated in December. Got my mechanical engineering degree. So
Nice.
I've raced and been in school my whole life until now. This is my first year I'm out in the wild. So yeah, but yeah, we were running the national championship. I think we ran 60 some races that year, and it was me, dad, and the volunteer help. We'd roll up in our old beat up rusty trailer, and everybody would have the stacker haulers at the late model track, and we'd take home the trophy. So, yeah, I think that step right there is finally what put me on the map. That got me the opportunity to run the Spire truck, the number 7 truck at IRP in 23.
Mm-hmm.
Ended up doing a couple races with Colleague in the Xfinity Series. It definitely was a learning curve there, but remember the last race we ran for them, it was at Martinsville, the crazy Martinsville race with Austin Hill and Sheldon Creed. I remember coming across the line, running into somebody. And before the race happened, me and Dad were standing there talking, and a guy came over. It was planned out, but I didn't really know who he was. We started talking. He's like, "Yeah, you've been doing good." He said, "You want to drive my truck next year?" I was like, "Uh, sure. What is it?" He's like, "Oh, it's the 38 truck for front row." I was like, "Yes, I do. I really do." He said, "Okay." He said, "I'll watch you today, and we'll see if you get a phone call on Monday or not." And I was like, "Oh God." So
Wow.
that's a lot of pressure. And then Monday morning, he called me and said, "We're interested. We want you." So it's
Was that Bob Jenkins or who was that?
it was Jerry Freeze.
Jerry Freeze. Okay.
So yeah, Bob doesn't come to a lot of the races, but
Gotcha.
Jerry's normally at most of them, and Jerry runs the team like it's his. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm now really close with both of them, and it's just crazy. He's like, "Yeah, I saw you're making good moves and showed you had good speed, and we want you to be a part of our program." And having Loves at front row already really helped me out financially. Kind of just set me right in there and replaced what Zane had going on. Obviously, there was some personnel changes, new crew chief along the way that moved around, but yeah, it was a perfect opportunity.
That's crazy to put that kind of pressure on you, like going into a race weekend, just like, hey, just so you know, whatever you do in this race will determine if you are in a race winning truck next year or not. Like no pressure or
Yeah,
anything. That's
exactly. And he might have just been pulling my arm. He probably already knew his decision, but he's like, let me put a little pressure on this kid and see how he responds. And
look.
we ran, I remember, I think they put me out there on 2 tires or something, and I was in the top. I think I led a couple of restarts and ended up finishing, well, we were going to finish like fifth, and then I forgot, got spun out or something. I got spun out like 3 times. Who knows? That's Martinsville.
Yeah. Again, you can watch or listen to the full interview, the full episode of Power Hour by clicking the link down in the description below. Thank you all so much for tuning in. That's all I've got for today. Leave a like if you enjoyed this video. Hit that thumbs up button. Also hit that subscribe button if you're new to the channel. We talk NASCAR every single day here on Out of the Groove. Big thank you to my generous Patreon supporters as well. Again, I hope everyone has fun. Stay safe this weekend at Homestead Miami Speedway. I'll talk to y'all tomorrow, Friday, before the weekend, but I hope you have a great rest of your night. Thanks for watching, folks. I'll see you again real soon.